Hi, everybody! So, I know I've talked a little bit about gender representation in the past regarding Alan Wake, but my review of how Remedy Entertainment handled Alice, what with her ineptitude and kidnapping and phobias and whining, well, it didn't really inspire much confidence. And for all too many games, that scenario is all too common. Of course, poor portrayals of both genders have existed throughout history in all forms of media, but even in our current age of information and enlightenment, games like Bayonetta and Metroid Other M still manage to fall short of the mark. But despite all that, I want to provide a few examples of how games and the developers who make them are starting to make a positive shift toward a more egalitarian gameplay experience, and illustrate that it's not just women who are seen in an unflattering light. So hold on to your petticoats and smoking jackets, boys and girls, as we take another quick look into gender representation on this episode of... My research uncovered quite a few articles published in academic journals about all the negative depictions of females in video games throughout the years. This honestly was surprising to me all by itself. I honestly didn't expect to find scholarly, peer-reviewed publications on video game characters. But as I kept going, I found nothing about the unflattering stereotyping that men have to endure. I also found nothing about how game designers are beginning to understand that the 1950s view of men and women don't hold up in today's games. It all seemed overwhelmingly geared toward negative and sexist illustrations of women. According to the Entertainment Software Association, as of 2014, 59% of Americans play video games, and 48% of those who do are female. So what about the 52% of men who are also constantly bombarded with the male equivalent of ridiculous stereotyping, such as the violent and ultra-muscular alpha males as seen in games like Duke Nukem and Gears of War? One of the articles I found recounted the opening scene in Double Dragon, where a gang of muscle-bound thugs literally punch a woman in the stomach, then haul her off like a piece of meat while the protagonists, also muscle-bound, have to fight their way through thousands of these brutes to get the kidnapped girl back. She appears for less than 10 seconds, yet here's the quote I found. A woman, also depicted with large breasts and wearing a miniskirt, is walking down the street when a man hits her, knocking her down on the sidewalk. He subsequently throws her over his shoulder and carries her away. Even though the hours of gameplay following that opening scene are nothing but street brawls carried out in what appear to be fits of martial artistry coupled with blinding testosterone-fueled roid rage, the research itself makes no mention of this. It can only be assumed that men in society are still supposed to conform to this unrealistic display of so-called masculinity. Our nation in particular seems to be less apt to point out this hypocrisy and stereotyping, preferring violent illustrations to sexual ones. And so, the men in the audience get left with the glaring impression that this is just some pretty normal guy stuff. Uh-huh. But alright, you say, Double Dragon is from the mid-80s, which is typically an era noted for everyone's bad decisions. There can't possibly be something so sexist in today's games. Well, those familiar with Bayonetta might say otherwise. Granted, this game has Japan written all over it, and their cultural standards are a little different when it comes to gender roles. However, the titular Bayonetta was actually designed around the concept of her sexiness, as her creator, Hideki Kamiya, openly admits. In fact, Bayonetta was designed as his ideal woman. According to the Bayonetta wiki, Bayonetta's ability to transform into a panther reflected the developer's desire to make her a sexy witch. To emphasize her femininity and sexuality, the developers made Bayonetta lose rose petals instead of blood when hit, and used a butterfly motif that manifests in her wings. Now, I'm not the type to fault a guy for a little harmless fantasy here, but still seeing this stuff even as recent as 2010 seems like a setback for gender equality, maybe. However, I definitely see good being done here. Lots of titles have made the unmistakable switch toward a better future for men and women alike, such as in Heavy Rain, where you play as a completely normal-looking family man who shaves, uses the bathroom, and showers like everyone else. In my favorite, the Mass Effect series, it gets even better. In this series, set 200 years into the future when humans have become a spacefaring species due to the discovery of intergalactic travel, you can opt to play as either a male or female lead character, named Commander Shepard. If you choose the female lead, you are treated to a stunning display of equality, as the storylines and dialogue for both male and female Shepard are nearly identical. The female Shepard, who can be completely customized to the player's liking, still commands her crew with great respect, is unparalleled in battle, and is revered throughout the galaxy, never once becoming subject to any unbecoming female stereotypes. In fact, even the attire and armor are nearly identical to the male Shepard, including the casual clothes worn around the ship. The armor is in no way revealing or sexual, but practical and flattering, and does nothing to fan the flames of controversy, such as being a hypersexualized object of desire, as was the trouble with early female protagonists. Even when there is sex, both genders can also choose either a straight or gay sexual orientation, and regardless of whom Shepard chooses to have a relationship with, it must be tastefully cultivated between both parties. No gratuitous nudity on either gender's end, either. Unfortunately. But without having an ideal body to control, these games don't subscribe to the commonly held myth of perfection that serves as the cornerstone of most representations regarding either gender. Lastly, even Lara Croft, one of the most infamous, stereotypically sexualized female video game characters in history, has had a drastic transformation in her new 2013 Tomb Raider reboot. No longer a midriff-bearing vixen toting an impossible set of breasts, lips, and legs, Lara's character design has undergone a series of notable changes. Least of all, her normal, non-attention-seeking physique and new practical wardrobe. She manages to be sexy without being a busty seductress, which, even if you're not a gamer, you might recognize as a far cry from earlier incarnations of the exact same woman. All in all, media everywhere has a long way to go before gender representation is fully realized, but now that video games are reaching a larger audience than ever before, developers are going to have to evolve with the times and roll with the punches. The, rage-fueled kung fu punches. That's all I've got for this quick spotlight on gender representation in video games. Remember, save early, save often, and tune in next time to Save Point.